Everton are in a very weird state right now. On the field, they seem to have picked up a combination that works under the tutelage of Sean Dyche and are starting to pick up consistent results, both home and away. But off the field, things are slowly getting worse for them every passing day, with their financial mismanagement over recent years resulting in them receiving a 10-point deduction subject to appeal. But it's when that appeal is unsuccessful that things will really start to kick in for Everton, with multiple clubs in England, both in the Premier League and in the Championship, planning to take legal action against them for damages. It's a very weird situation to be in. On the field, they're perfectly fine and are destined for another mid-table finish, but their off-field shenanigans mean they're never really safe from the threat of relegation, or something worse. Hello, my name is Samuel, welcome back to the channel, and I'm recording this after my very first day of internship. It's been a tiring day, but I slacked off over the weekend. I didn't really record, so I have to pay the price for it. Actually, it's not technically my fault. I had another video planned. The script for that was done on Friday, but then this happened and I'm like, yeah, let's make this video a little earlier, because I already had it in the draft about how it's gonna go, but now I have the written arguments and the actual outcome. So it's like, just push it a little bit, try to change the script, try to go through the written arguments, which was 41 pages. I didn't know why I did that, but here we are. But it fits in with my channel theme, innit? Club suffering, I'm here to make a video about them. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and at the end of it, if you do drop a subscribe, do drop a like, all that good stuff, but only if you do like it. I want to try to earn your subscription. But anywho, let's get started. As of Thursday, the 16th of November, Everton sit 14th in the Premier League table, comfortably above the relegation zone, and are one of the most informed teams in the league, with only Manchester United and Liverpool picking up more points than them over the last 5 games. After numerous tweaking and testing since his appointment, Dyche has really found a settled 11 consisting of a great blend of both the youth and experience. You've got experienced internationals like Pickford, Tarkowski, and a 67-year-old Ashley Young, combined with hot prospects such as Mikalenko, Jarreth Brathwaite, Jimmy Garner, Andre Onana. Sorry, no, Amadou Onana. Sorry, wrong Onana, whose best years are ahead of them at somewhere probably better than Everton. And of course, we cannot forget the crown prince of this entire project, the man who makes everything tick, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. After numerous years of injury struggles since his first big break under Carlo Ancelotti, he's really found his feet again under Sean Dyche. And the England international actually came out and praised Dyche in a recent interview, saying how his current manager has allowed him to recover both physically and mentally so that he's ready to step on a football field again, whereas with previous management, they rushed him back when he was not mentally ready, since they need a result, and hence he kind of just got injured again. As you can tell, Dyche has gotten his imprint on this team, both tactically and mentally, and the players are ready to run through brick walls for him. And Everton look like a team again for the first time in a while. It's just a shame that this is coinciding with their worst off-field situation ever. Now, if you've been paying close attention to what I've been saying, which I hope you've been, you would have noticed I said Everton were 14th on Thursday. There's a good reason I phrase it like that, because on Friday, they got slapped with a 10-point deduction by the Premier League, which drops them to 19th in the table. This is the biggest point deduction ever for a Premier League side, for a breach that you could argue didn't merit such consequences, or even a sporting fine for that matter. But it's when you read the fine print and the arguments made by each side that you start to realize Everton up here. Over the course of 5 days, Everton and the Premier League had to present their arguments to a commission and a panel of 3 people, one of whom was, funnily enough, named Greenwood. Which isn't the point of this entire thing, but considering the club I support and what that name represents to the club, it's just very funny to me. The arguments made by both parties revolved around several topics which we will get to in due course. But the biggest topic, and Everton's main defense, was around the finances concerning this construction of Everton's new stadium. From this point onward, there's a lot of words being said, a lot of unnecessary stuff are also on the table, and a lot of repetitive stuff, so I've tried my best to simplify and present to you what I think are the most important information. It was a 41-page document. It's hard to leave out some stuff. It's not a simple 1 + 1 = 2, but I did my best, so enjoy. Everton's argument regarding stadium construction costs can be narrowed down to a couple things. They're arguing that the commercial loans taken to fund the stadium should be excluded from the FSR or the FFP calculations, since this was the agreement that they had with the Premier League in the first place. and that if, let's say, the stadium were to not be constructed, they will easily be able to pay back the loans, and they used the fact that their current owner, Fahad Moshiri, used loans to buy the club in the first place and were able to pay back later. The Premier League's argument was that, yes, these commercial loans can be excluded from the calculations, but if and only if they were borrowed in respect to the stadium, meaning that money is the only source of money being used on the stadium, which was easily proven to not be the case, as the documents submitted by Everton showed that the funds that are being used for stadium development are a separate interest-free loan that is being taken out by Fahad Moshiri. And as for the paying back argument, well, their whole statement was that a what if doesn't really prove anything. And these arguments work, as the panel sided with the Premier League regarding this case. Get used to that statement, because everything else that happens in this hearing has that exact same outcome. You think I'm joking? Let's get into the other stuff. The second major argument came in respect to a certain player, who is labeled as player X in the document, though after reading for a bit, it's pretty clear who it was. There's a very iced-in land amount of players to choose from. To give some context, this player X was signed for Everton in 2017. He was a regular starter and eventually became a star player. But in 2021, he had criminal charges, he was arrested, he was convicted, and the FA suspended him. And after this suspension, Everton had to release him because he could not perform contractual duties, aka he could no longer play for them. After being released, Everton considered suing the player for £10 million, but decided against it in fear of the player's bad mental welfare. Their argument is this $10 million in question should be added into their FFP calculations. The panel wasn't a big fan of this, for a few reasons. Firstly, it was a business decision not to sue the player. Secondly, there is no evidence of the player's bad mental state after the conviction and trials, so you can't use that either. And thirdly, there is no guarantee that you're going to get that exact £10 million after the trial. Usually when it happens, you're going to get a portion of that 10 million, and you still have to fork out money for lawyers, which is more money out. So you are claiming for a real best case scenario. And lastly, this is kind of the killer here. There's no evidence of the player being able to fork out the 10 million in question. So, long story short, another argument made by Everton based on hypotheticals, and the panel ain't here to take any bullshit. Now let's move on. The next major argument is regarding player transfers, more specifically player outs. Everton wanted to exclude about £44 million from their 2020 financial account since it was a COVID year. Let's paint the picture here. For the summer window of 2020, Everton had to submit something called a player trading strategy around March of that year, where they planned to sell 12 players and buy 4, which obviously didn't happen. Well, the buying 4 players part did happen, but they didn't manage to sell the 12 players. They only sold 2. The argument is that because of COVID, it's very hard to sell and release players, and as a result, if they were actually able to sell, say, 8 of these 12 players, including a certain other anonymous player, which is labeled Player Y, which I still cannot figure out who it is, and that's bugging me. But that's besides the point again. The club would have raised a net profit of £50 million, which was later dismissed by the panel as nothing short of target prices. And that was that. But the argument was centered a little bit around Player Y, with the figure stated being something that they expected to get from this player, as he was claimed to be one of the players to be on sale. The Premier League quickly disputed this by saying that in future financial documents sent from April onwards, this player in question, Player Y, was taking off their player trading strategy, meaning he was no longer actively for sale. And here's the killer part. In that exact summer of 2020, this Player Y was given a new contract. Yikes. Everton tried to argue that this was just to enhance the player's value, and if the right price came, they would still try to sell Player Y. But you already lost, bro. We can tell. There's no need to fight anymore. The panel, to no one's surprise, sided with the Premier League, and they think that it was also a deliberate choice to keep Player Y. There were other arguments made too, such as the naming rights deal that Everton had going for them, which will get them 10 million a year from 2025 onwards, but negotiations to pull it to as early as 2022 was taking place. But since this was a Russian company, Russia's invasion of Ukraine means they pulled out of the deal, and that they should be able to put that 10 million into the books. The Premier League's argument was, again, there is no concrete proof that this negotiation has been done, and thus it's another what if situation, which the panel agree with. This is the first one that I'm kind of a bit iffy about. If you already have a deal and you're trying to push it early, maybe they should have the benefit of the doubt. And the Premier League's entire argument for that whole thing was, lol, shit happens. It's a political situation, you really can't do anything about it. Just let them have it, man. After all the arguments, it was time to decide which type of punishment it's gonna be. The Premier League argued that it should be a sporting punishment, more specifically, points deduction. Whereas in Everton's case, they argued that a financial punishment should be sufficient, whereas if you want to do sporting punishments, transfer embargoes or registration embargoes are the way to go. The panel, no surprises again, sided with the Premier League and decided on a points deduction. But this is where things get a little murky, because the only written method for punishments was the EFL method, which is basically -12 subject to appeal. Whereas the Premier League does not have any written method, but a verbal rule was that it's going to be 6 points if it goes above the threshold and 1 extra point deducted for every 5 million that it exceeds. They decided to go with neither of these methods and pulled out 10 points from thin air, just an arbitrary number that they thought, aight, this makes sense, which doesn't sit right with me. But at the end of the day, what can you do? Overall, this was a pretty bad beatdown for Everton, but they can still appeal, which they definitely will. But from past experience, at least with the Sheffield Wednesday case, which I did a video on, so go watch that, it's very hard to overturn a decision, but it's very easy to reduce the amount of points deducted. But also, you also got to remember this will be a completely new panel, and the Premier League will also have knowledge on what works and what doesn't, the same way you do. And they could come up with, okay, 10 points? How about 15? And things could get sour from there. So they have to tread lightly. But I do think the amount of points will be reduced. But the decision might not get overturned, which leads onto this other point that they have, which is basically a bunch of sharks waiting for them on the other side. Because all of Leeds, Burnley, and Southampton are ready to sue Everton for damages, since if the verdict happened when it should, Everton would have been relegated instead of them. Whereas in Southampton's case, it's just, what the fuck are you doing? You were so terrible. Everton being deducted points would have no impact on your situation. You would still go down bottom of the table. Just sit this one out, man. Though I do think the other two does have some form of valid ground to take action, I don't think it will be successful, especially for Leeds, because in 2022-2023 they finished 19th. So if Everton were to drop, it's Leicester at 18th, that will be pushed up. If anything, they should be pursuing legal action. But on the off chance that Everton are found guilty and are asked to pay the £300 million in question, it could lead to more points deduction by the Premier League, almost guaranteeing their drop to the Championship. Or even worse, administration. And that's a scary thought for a club that's been in the top flight since 1954 and never got relegated. And that's a future that they definitely would want to avoid. And that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you do, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, all that good stuff. And yeah, I guess from now on, uploads will be infrequent or I might disappear again, since internships are around the corner. Not around the corner, it's already started. And I have to prioritize that and my sleep schedule for that, so I can't spend too late into the night scripting, editing, and all that good stuff. I need my rest, and I also have to leave home very early. So hope you understand, and until we see each other again, take care, have a wonderful day, and see ya.